What if I told you that by the time you go back to the past, your future could disappear forever? This question alone opens up an endless maze of theories and possibilities about time travel. For centuries, humanity has been fascinated by the idea of traveling back to fix mistakes, prevent tragedies, or even revisit moments of happiness. The appeal of being able to manipulate time is undeniably strong, but it comes with a confusing web of risks and paradoxes that could destroy the very fabric of reality as we know it. So what happens to the current timeline if you time travel to the past? Can you really change the future? Or are you cursed to live in a completely new reality, where everything, including your future, has changed forever? One of the biggest reasons to avoid altering the past is the possibility that you might never return to the timeline you came from. Once you change something in the past, you essentially break the chain of events that led you to time travel in the first place. Let's say you travel back in time to prevent an accident, and you succeed. Now, the accident never happened, which means you wouldn't have had a reason to go back in time. If you don't travel back in time, how did you manage to prevent the accident? This paradox leaves you stuck in the past, with no way to return to the original future, because the future you know has ceased to exist. Changing one event can split through the entire timeline, rewrite history, and leave you stranded in a new reality. It's a fascinating but terrifying concept. This idea is tied closely to the grandfather paradox, one of the most famous time travel scenarios. Imagine traveling back in time and killing your grandfather before he meets your grandmother. If your grandfather dies, your parents won't be born, and neither will you. But if you're never born, how did you manage to travel back in time to kill him in the first place? The paradox creates a logical loop where both outcomes, your existence and non-existence, cannot coexist. Some theories suggest that the universe would find a way to prevent this kind of paradox from happening, possibly through what is called the timeline protection hypothesis. According to this idea, the universe would somehow correct itself to stop you from altering significant events. So, if you tried to kill your grandfather, something would go wrong. Maybe your gun would jam, or some other event would intervene to stop you. This self-correcting mechanism makes sure that history stays intact, preventing any major changes that could cause errors in the timeline. However, not all theories about time travel are this optimistic. Some scientists and philosophers believe that when you change the past, you don't erase your original timeline, but instead create an alternate timeline. This is where things get really interesting. Picture reality as a tree with multiple branches. Every time you make a different decision or take a different action, you create a new branch or an alternate version of reality. When you travel back in time and make a change, you don't destroy your original timeline. Instead, you create a new branch of reality where the change you made motions into a different future. So, in one timeline, you still exist in the original version of events, but in this new timeline, everything has changed because of the action you took. This idea is part of what's called the multiverse theory, which suggests that an infinite number of parallel realities exist, each with different versions of events. In this multiverse scenario, time travel doesn't break the original timeline, but instead causes a split, creating a new, separate timeline. You might be able to return to the future, but it won't be the future you know. Instead, you'll be in a completely new version of reality, one where the past you altered has created a future with different possibilities. This raises the question, would you even want to return to a future that you no longer recognize? In this new reality, everything from your relationships to major historical events could be completely different. Your family might not exist in the same way, and even the world as you know it might be unrecognizable. Time travel in this sense isn't just about fixing mistakes, it's about creating entirely new realities. This makes time travel more complicated than simply hitting rewind and trying to fix a mistake. Once the past is altered, the future becomes uncertain. The people, events, and circumstances of your original future no longer exist in the way you remember. In a sense, the future is locked, and trying to change it by going back in time only shifts you into a different version of reality. This concept is closely related to the idea of causality, which means that cause and effect are tied together in a sequence. When you alter the past, you create new causes, which then lead to different effects in the future. These changes can echo through time in unpredictable ways, making it impossible to control the outcome. This is often referred to as the butterfly effect, where even a small change, like stepping on a butterfly in the past, can lead to massive, unforeseen consequences in the future. The smallest action, like moving an object or telling someone a secret, could trigger a chain reaction that reshapes history in ways you couldn't imagine. For this reason, even minor changes to the past could have dramatic and unintended results, which is why interfering with time is such a dangerous concept. Of course, time travel is still a hypothetical concept in the world of science fiction. However, some scientific theories do suggest that traveling into the future could be possible. Einstein's theory of relativity introduces the concept of time expansion, where time moves more slowly for objects traveling at high speeds. If you were able to travel at close to the speed of light, time would pass more slowly for you than for people on Earth. This means that while only a few hours pass for you, years could pass for everyone else, effectively allowing you to skip into the future. However, traveling back to the past is much more complex. One idea is the possibility of using wormholes, theoretical tunnels through space-time, that could allow for shortcuts between different points in time. While no wormholes have been discovered yet, scientists hypothesize that if they did exist, they could provide a way to travel between different time periods. However, even if wormholes are real, they would likely require immense amounts of energy to use, and the process of entering and exiting one could be incredibly dangerous. The physics behind wormholes is still hypothetical, and there's no clear evidence that they exist or could be used for time travel. Another idea is the concept of closed time-like curves, which are loops in space-time that could, in theory, allow you to travel back to an earlier point. However, these loops often lead to paradoxes, like the grandfather paradox, and they're difficult to get along with our current understanding of physics. So, while time travel into the future might be possible through time expansion, traveling back to the past remains much more complicated. The absence of time travelers could mean a few different things. It's possible that time travel simply isn't possible because of the paradoxes it creates. Or perhaps the technology hasn't been invented yet, meaning no one from the future has been able to travel back to our present. Another possibility is that time travelers do exist, but they're bound by strict rules that prevent them from revealing themselves or interfering with the timeline. In conclusion, the idea of time travel is endlessly fascinating, but it comes with an incredible amount of risk. The paradoxes, alternate timelines, and unpredictable consequences of changing the past make it clear that interfering with time could be dangerous. While the possibility of creating alternate realities or jumping between different versions of the future is exciting, it's also full of uncertainty. The next time you daydream about traveling back in time to fix a mistake or change history, remember, once you alter the past, the future you knew may never exist again. Time travel might sound like the ultimate adventure, but it's one with consequences that could leave you trapped in a reality you never intended to create.